All right, let's dive into this one. You're looking to break free from some toxic relationships, huh?
Always a good idea.
It really is.
Yeah.
And you've sent over this awesome article. So much good advice in here.
Well, it's definitely something a lot of people struggle with.
Yeah. Even just recognizing those toxic patterns can be tricky.
Oh, for sure. Sometimes it's hard to see the forest for the trees.
Right. That's one of the first things this article dives into, though, those subtle red flags that we might not even realize are like waving right in our faces.
Totally. Like, have you ever felt completely drained after spending time with someone?
Yeah, big red flag.
It's a huge one. And the article points out how it's often a bunch of small things that build up over time.
Yeah.
They chip away at you.
Death by 1,000 paper cuts.
Exactly. And this article lists some of those paper cuts,
Yeah.
like constant criticism, feeling judged instead of supported.
Ooh, yeah. Those are some painful ones.
They really are. But what's interesting is the article goes deeper than just listing the red flags.
Mm-hmm.
It gets into why these things are so toxic.
Yeah, it talks about how those seemingly small things can actually be signs of deeper issues, like manipulation or a lack of accountability.
Exactly. Like, think about it. If someone's always criticizing you,
It can really wear you down.
it can.
Mm.
But it can also be a way to control you, keep you feeling insecure.
Like they're trying to shrink you down to fit in their box.
Exactly. And when those criticisms aren't balanced with any genuine support or encouragement, that's when it becomes toxic.
It makes total sense. And the article's really clear about the consequences of staying in these relationships, isn't it?
It doesn't sugarcoat it. It says this stuff goes way beyond just drama.
Hmm.
It affects your mental and physical health.
It's like, remember when we talked about the science of stress? How it can literally make you sick?
Oh, yeah. And this article connects toxic relationships to things like anxiety, depression, even physical symptoms like headaches or trouble sleeping.
Wow, that's a powerful connection. This isn't just about hurt feelings, it's about your well-being.
Absolutely. It's about recognizing you deserve to be in relationships where you feel safe and supported and respected, not constantly on edge.
So true. Speaking of walking on eggshells, I'm thinking about this friend of mine. She used to date this guy.
Oh, no. Story time.
Yeah, but it's a good example of how subtle this stuff can be. Her boyfriend, he'd criticize everything, her clothes, the way she laughed, even how she loaded the dishwasher.
Seriously.
The dishwasher.
I know, right? But she was so used to it, she didn't even realize how much it was affecting her. It was like she was always trying to please him.
And never feeling good enough.
Exactly.
That's classic toxicity. It can be so insidious that you don't even realize you're caught in that web.
Until you step back and look at the patterns.
Exactly.
And even then, it can be so tough to break free. The article talks about guilt and self-blame, too.
Oh, yeah. Those feelings can be really powerful.
Like, what did I do wrong?
Or, if only I was different, they wouldn't treat me this way.
But we have a choice. We forget that. Yes. And that's what this article is all about. It reminds us we are not responsible for the actions of other people.
We can't control how other people behave.
Nope. But we can control how we respond and how we choose to let them treat us.
So where do we start? How do we take back control?
Boundaries.
Hmm.
This article really emphasizes that. They're like those invisible fences that protect you.
Protect your well-being.
Exactly. And the article gets into how to set them.
Which I think a lot of people struggle with, right?
Oh, for sure. But this article talks about defining what you're willing to tolerate and what you absolutely won't.
Okay, that makes sense. But then how do you actually communicate those boundaries?
Well, it talks about using I statements,
Yeah.
being clear and direct. And this is key, not apologizing for having needs.
Oh, that's a good one. It's so easy to apologize for everything. Like, I'm sorry, but I really need some space right now.
Right. Instead of saying, I'm sorry, try something like, I'm taking some time for myself right now because I need to recharge. No apologies necessary.
I love that. Direct, assertive, and puts the focus on your needs.
And that's exactly what setting boundaries is all about. Creating healthier relationships where your needs are met, your voice is heard, and you feel respected.
This is already so helpful. But even with all these awesome boundary-setting skills, breaking free from a toxic relationship can feel lonely.
You're absolutely right. That's why the article talks about support systems. Having those people in your corner can make all the difference, whether it's friends, family, a therapist, or a support group.
It's like having your own personal cheering section.
Exactly. Because toxic people often try to isolate you, make you doubt your perceptions, like you're the one who's crazy.
So true. Having that outside support helps you see things more clearly. It reminds you you're not alone.
You got it. And that's just the beginning. We're going to keep diving into this.
Oh, there's so much more to unpack.
We've only just scratched the surface. We'll be back to talk about setting those boundaries, building those support systems, and this one's huge, letting go of that guilt that can hold us back. Stay tuned.
We'll be right back. We were talking about how important that support system is, right? When you're breaking free from a toxic relationship.
Like a safety net.
Exactly. And speaking of boundaries, I know we touched on those before, but I'd love to get into some nitty-gritty. Like, what are some specific examples? What can people actually do?
Yeah, good question. The article actually gives some great examples. Like, one that stood out to me was about communication. Say you've got a friend who's always calling you to vent.
Oh, we all have that friend.
Right. But they never seem to listen to you. So the boundary you could set in that situation is, hey, I care about you and I want to be there for you, but I need some time to talk about my stuff too. Can we, like, agree to take turns?
So much better than just, like, ghosting them.
Totally. Or letting all that resentment build up.
Right.
And if they keep, steamrolling over that boundary, you can gently remind them, hey, remember we talked about taking turns? I'm happy to listen, but can we switch gears for a bit?
Like you've got a script.
It can feel that way at first, but the more you do it, the more natural it becomes. The article also talks about boundaries around physical space and time, too. Like, maybe you just need some alone time on weekends to recharge.
Yeah.
Or you're not cool with people dropping by unannounced.
That's so real. I'm a total introvert. I need that solo time.
Absolutely. It's all about honoring what you need and then communicating it. Another example the article gives is setting boundaries around, well, behavior. Let's say someone's always making jokes at your expense.
The worst.
And it makes you feel uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Instead of just laughing it off, you could say, I know you're just trying to be funny, but those jokes actually hurt my feelings. Can you be more mindful?
See, that's something I really need to work on. I just brush things off to avoid conflict, but then I end up, like, resenting the person.
It's so common. It takes practice.
Yeah.
The key is to remember setting boundaries isn't about being mean or controlling. It's about respect.
Respecting yourself.
Yes, and your needs. It's like that saying, you can't pour from an empty cup.
Oh, that's a good one.
Setting boundaries is how you fill your cup back up.
And that support system, how important is that during all of this?
Oh, it's crucial. Think of it like your cheering section on the sidelines, encouraging you, reminding you of your worth when you start to doubt yourself.
Especially when that guilt creeps in.
Oh, for sure. It's so easy to blame ourselves. If only I had done this differently. Or maybe I'm overreacting.
So how do we deal with that guilt?
The article reminds us we are not responsible for other people's actions. Full stop. We can't control how they behave, but we can choose to prioritize our own well-being.
And sometimes prioritizing ourselves means stepping away, even if it's hard, even if it makes us feel guilty.
Exactly. And remember, guilt often comes from a place of empathy. It means you're a caring person, but you got to direct some of that care inwards too.
So compassion for yourself and the other person.
Exactly. You deserve kindness and respect, just like everyone else.
Okay, so boundaries, support system. What about the actual process of breaking free? Any tips from the article on how to do that?
Well, the article doesn't sugarcoat it. Breaking free can be messy, painful, but it's a process. You don't have to do it all at once. Maybe you start by setting small boundaries, creating some distance, or even just acknowledging to yourself that things aren't healthy.
Baby steps.
Exactly. And you don't have to go through it alone. That support system, that's where they come in. A therapist, a good friend, a support group. They can provide that safe space for you to process everything, figure out what's best for you.
It's like having a guide.
Yeah. To help you through the rough parts. And to celebrate those wins along the way.
Speaking of wins, the article also talks about the growth that comes after breaking free. It's like a whole new chapter.
Absolutely.
It's like you've been carrying around this weight, and suddenly you can breathe again.
It's pretty amazing to see. The article talks about using this time to reconnect with yourself, rediscover your passions, focus on self-care.
Yes. It's so easy to forget about ourselves when we're in a toxic situation.
Reclaiming that self-care is powerful. It's giving yourself permission to do things that bring you joy, nourish your mind and body and soul.
What are some practical ways to do that, especially after going through something so tough?
The article has some great suggestions, like listening to your body, getting enough sleep, eating good food, moving your body in ways that feel good.
It's like treating yourself with the kindness you'd show a good friend.
Yes. And it could also mean exploring creative outlets, spending time in nature, connecting with loved ones, anything that helps you feel grounded and energized.
Is filling our cup back up.
Exactly. And the more you invest in your own well-being, the better equipped you'll be to build healthy relationships in the future.
Which is a perfect segue to the next part of our deep dive. We're going to explore building those meaningful connections after breaking free from toxicity.
Stay tuned. We'll be right back with more insights and tips to help you create the relationships you deserve.
Okay, I am so ready for this last part. We talked about red flags, we talked about boundaries, we talked about support systems. Now let's talk about building those healthy relationships we deserve.
This is the fun part. This is where all that hard work starts to pay off.
It really does. And this article talks about how it's a chance to, really define what we want moving forward.
Like, okay, I learned from the past. What do I actually want now?
It's like leveling up. You've got all this experience and wisdom. Now it's time to use it.
Exactly. The article talks about getting clear on your values.
Oh, I love that. Like, what are your non-negotiables in a relationship?
Right. Is it honesty? Is it shared laughter? Is it someone who's up for anything? What are the things that make you feel connected?
Makes you feel seen.
Exactly. And it's not about finding someone who's exactly like you either. It's about finding people who complement you, challenge you in a good way, and of course, share those core values.
It's like those friends where you can just be yourself. Completely. And you know they've got your back no matter what.
That's the kind of connection we're talking about. And the article reminds us, those relationships don't just appear overnight, right? They take time.
So true. Like that saying, good things take time.
Exactly. It emphasizes that healthy relationships are built, gradually through shared experiences, communication, and actions matching words.
Oh, that's so important. We always hear actions speak louder than words, but it's more than just the big gestures,
It's the little things, too.
It's those consistent, everyday actions that build trust. Kindness, respect, understanding.
Absolutely. It's about showing up for each other in the big moments and the small ones, and remembering those lessons we've learned.
Oh, right. The article talked about using those past experiences to spot those red flags early on.
And not being afraid to walk away if something feels off.
Trust your gut.
That's it. If something feels wrong, don't ignore it. You deserve to be in relationships where you feel safe, respected, valued, all of it.
I love that. That whole trusting your gut thing. It's something I had to learn the hard way. I used to be such a people pleaser.
Oh, we've all been there.
I would ignore those gut feelings every time.
But learning to trust yourself, that's huge.
It really is. It's like having your own personal relationship GPS.
Guiding you to the right connections.
And speaking of guidance, the article also talks about setting standards.
For those future relationships.
Yes.
Having a vision of what you want and not settling for less.
It's like saying, hey, I've learned from my mistakes. I'm not going to repeat those patterns.
Exactly.
I deserve something better.
You do. And that shift in mindset, it's so important.
Knowing your worth, attracting the right people.
That's it.
You know what? This makes me think about that hero's journey idea we talked about before.
Oh, tell me more.
It's like breaking free from a toxic relationship. That's the big adventure, right?
Right.
You face your fears, you fight your dragons, and you come out stronger.
Love that analogy.
And now it's time to write the next chapter.
Filled with healthy, fulfilling relationships.
And I think that's a perfect place to wrap up our deep dive.
I agree. It's been a great conversation.
So much good stuff in that article.
We covered it all, huh?
From recognizing those red flags to setting boundaries, finding support, and ultimately creating those connections that bring us joy.
That's what it's all about. And remember, you're not alone in this. It takes a lot of courage and self-awareness. Be proud of yourself for taking those steps.
And never forget those amazing connections you're looking for. They're out there.
They are.
Keep those standards high, trust your gut, and keep believing in the power of healthy relationships.
Well said.
Until next time, keep diving deep.
And keep shining bright.
We'll see you on the next deep dive.